This is part 10 of the front-end development series that we are working on, and in this video we are going to complete that typography component and also write test for the typography component. Okay, so let's come down to packages, core, src, components, typography. In the last video we already completed the layout component, so let's go ahead and work this typography component out. So let's open up typography.tsx file. Let's also open up this spec file. Okay, so whatever you see here, this was from the last video, but let's remove everything out here and then we will write this typography component completely from scratch here. Okay, and for typography.spec, let's keep that there for now, but let's do this let's write this typography component. Let's import React from React. Let's also import styled from styled components. And let's also import our very favorite higher order component with route, that is with system props. Makes everything super easier. And I still have to figure out why that is happening, why it is not importing it from utils, but let's do that. And let's define a TypeScript interface, so I will name it mod typography props, and this extends from react.html attributes, that one, HTML attributes, HTML element, because in this typography component we'll not just be rendering h1 tag like we did before. We'll be rendering h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6 paragraph tag, small. There are also other HTML elements like strong, bold, italic, whatever you want to call it, emphasized, mark, delete, insert, subscript, and superscripts. Okay, so we will include that in the typography component. So let's just do it from HTML element because it's not anything specific. Let's provide children, and this should be required, not optional. React node. You can also mark that as optional, but since there should be something inside typography component or the HTML element, we will mark that as required. And also let's not forget the ref that we did, react.ref HTML element. Okay, let's close that. Let's not forget to import forward ref. And we did this in last videos. If you do not know this ref or system props or what I'm talking about here, go and watch my previous videos. Okay, because if you are just starting out from this video, it's not going to work out. Okay, you'll get lost. Variant, let's apply variant. Variant can be either h1 or h2 or h3 or h4 or h5 or h6. So those are all the 6 headings. We'll also, so for paragraph tag, for p tag, we'll do 2 variants. So one will be body 1 and the other one will be body 2, so that we have different styles for the paragraph depending on the paragraph element. That'll be body 1 will maybe a little bit bigger and darker, but body 2 will be maybe a little bit smaller and lighter. Okay, and that depends on the theme too, but that's why we have 2 variants for the body. So small. Let's also do B for bold, and let's also do strong. Let's also do italic text. I don't know how to say that. EM, that is emphasized. Okay, and these are all HTML elements. Okay, mark is also HTML element. It will give you that, it will shade it with yellow. But there are use cases for this. For me, there are use cases. If there aren't any use cases for you, especially with this mark and delete, del, if you do not have use cases, you don't have to write this here. Okay, but I'm going to do it because I need it. Delete, and also insert, and also subscript and superscript. Okay, sup. So those are all the variants that the user can provide when using the typography component. h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6, body 1, body 2, small. Okay, so all that looks good. So now const mod, let's define h1. So const mod typography, and that is just my naming convention. h1 is equals to style.h1, and we'll need to provide the types, that is mod typography props that we define up above. Mod typography props. Let's add styles to this. Okay, so font family, and we will not hardcode anything out here, but we will be using theme for this. Okay, because we already have theme files in utils, src, assets. We have light theme and dark theme, so let's open that too here. So for font family, in both dark theme and light theme, we have font family called Coho. Okay, so we are going to provide that font for the font family here. So what we can do is props theme and of course we can also destructure the props here instead of having to write props all the time, but I do it this way so that I know the differences between when something that the user can provide, then I use props something, and when the prop is used within the component and not by the user, then I destructure that. But just to make things a little clear, I am not destructuring the props, and every time I try to access something, then I have to do props.theme. Okay, so props.theme, the typography font family primary coho is props.theme typography.ff.primary. Okay, that's what it will be. Props.theme typography.fontfamily.primary. Okay, and font weight, let's also specify font weight for a heading tag. This will be bold. Props.theme.typography.fw, that is font weight bold. Okay, fw.bold. Put a semicolon in the end. In style components, if you do not put a semicolon, you get an error. Okay, font size, props, this will be the bigger font size, theme dot typography dot font size dot extra large. Do I have that property there? I do. Extra large for h1 tag. Okay, and for color, props.theme.typography.color.primary. Okay, let's also add some padding top, 16 pixels. I'm going to apply 16 pixels padding bottom. I guess we could do the padding in the same line, but that's okay. 16 pixels. Margin top, 0 pixels. You know what, let's just do this in the same line here. Margin top, so top 0 pixels, right, well, margin top and margin will be 0 pixels. Okay, so we don't need to do top and bottom, but let's do this padding. Instead of writing this in 2 lines, let's specify padding top is 16 pixels, right is 0 pixels, bottom is 16 pixels, left is 0 pixels. Okay, and now once you do that, we can just get rid of that 2 lines there. Margin 0 pixels is good. So that's all the styles for the h1 tag. Let's copy and paste this for each and every other headings that we have. Okay, h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6. I'm just copying and pasting there, and we'll just rename this here. h1, this is for h2, okay, rename this h3. And this typography component is very simple. We will be writing very complex components, but let's start with simple components and then move on to complex components. Okay, at least for the next few videos will be super simple components, and then we'll start writing some of the complex components. Okay, h4, style.h4, and that's for that'll be h5. Let's rename that to h5, and that'll be h6. Let's rename this to h6, and let's override some of the styles here. Okay, so for h1 is everything looks good. For h2, font family will still be primary. Font weight can still be bold. Font size can be large. Color can be still primary. Padding 16 pixels good. Margins 0 pixels good. Let's come to h3. For h3, font family primary good. Font weight, instead of bold, I'm going to put semi-bold. And of course you can change all these styles, but I recommend you to follow along for now, so that in the end you can change it. But just to be consistent here, just keep it whatever I have here. Okay, so padding, instead of 16 pixels, top and bottom padding should be 8 pixels. I'm going to reduce that to 8 pixels. Top, right, bottom is 8 pixels, and left is 0 pixels. Okay, margin 0 pixels looks good. For h4 tag, for h4 element, font family is primary good. Font width is bold. No, I want that to be semi-bold. And font size, I'm going to mark that as medium. That is 1 rem. Okay, medium is 1 rem. And for color is primary good, because for color, let's look at it here. Primary color in case of dark theme is FFF, that's white. And primary color in case of light theme is this 474747, which is like darker gray. And this colors, again, we did this when we created this mod light theme and dark theme, and I guess I believe in part 5, but these colors are different here. Okay, so I'm not going to go through that all over again. h4 is good. For h5, heading 5 primary good. Font weight can be again semi-bold for the heading. Okay, font size can be medium for heading 5. Color is primary good. Padding will be just this. Okay, padding and margin of h4. Did we do h4 here? We didn't do. Well, I think I was talking about color and then I got lost there, but padding should be 8 pixels here for heading 4. Okay, at least for my use case. Margin 0 looks good. Heading 5, padding will still be 8 pixels on the top and 8 pixels on the bottom. Right and left can be 0 pixels. Margin 0 good. For h5, h6, font family primary good. Semi-bold, let's change that to semi-bold for heading 6. Let's change this to medium. Okay, 1 rem. Color primary looks good. And padding also, let's change that to 8 pixels. And then 8 pixels. Okay, so that's the h1 to h6 tag. So let's do the same thing for body 1 and body 2. Const, and I'll follow my naming convention here. Body 1, mod typography body 1 is equals to styled. Let's just copy this instead of writing that all over again. So body 1 style dot, this body 1 will render a p tag or a paragraph tag. Okay, style dot p. Font family can be primary. Font weight will be medium. Okay, so medium font weight is 400. Okay, font size can be medium for body 1. That's the main paragraph. Okay, and color, I'm going to specify this color as main. Okay, instead of primary. So the main color is C2 in dark theme. That's like a light, not gray, but light gray kind of color. Okay, and for main, this is like a darker gray color in light theme. So props.theme.typography.color.main for body 1. And for margin and padding, we'll just use the default browser's margin and padding. Same thing with body 2. Styled, this will still render a p tag. And primary looks good. Font weight medium looks good. Font size, I'm going to change this to small this time because body 1 is medium font size, body 2 can be small font size, and also color I'm going to change that to light. Okay, and let's also specify padding of 8 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 pixels on the right and left. So body 1, body 2, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, looking good. Let's do the same thing, and I'll put a timestamp in the video in the description below so that you can jump to another section. Okay, but you know what, instead of writing all this, I'm sure, let me just copy and paste here because I already have a note, okay, of all this. So instead of copying and pasting and overwriting each of these manually, I just wrote all this already for the other typography elements. So we did until body 2, but again I supplied small, so, and added some styles. Make sure that it should be style.small. It should the variant, whenever the user supplies the variant to be small, then it actually renders a small tag. I did the same for bold, style.b, okay, strong, style.strong, and then styles, italic, style.i, emphasis, style.em, okay, mark, style.mark, delete, style.delete, insert, style.insert, so subscript, style.sub, superscript, style.sup, okay. So that was all the styles for all those variants, all those typography variants. So now we will render a particular element depending on the variant that the user provides. So what we'll do is we will write a new function here, const get typography component, and is equals to, if the variant supplied is mod typography props variant, okay, and we'll write a switch case here, okay, switch variant, and if the user supplied variant is h1, then what we'll do, we will return mod typography h1, that is defined above, okay, it's already there, mod typography h1, and we'll do the same thing for h2, h3, h4, h5, h6 for all the other tags, okay. For h2 we will do h2, for h3 we will do h3, h4 we will do h4. So I'm going to do this to all these other typography elements, okay. So these are all the elements. It's all this switch case is doing is, if the user supplied variant is h1, then we are returning a mod typography h1 element with all the styles, okay, on top here, h1 on top. But let's come down here, h2, then if the user supplied value is variant is h2, then we are returning mod typography h2 as we defined above. And for all this, if the user supplied variant is body 1, then we return a mod typography body 1 element, okay, that is the paragraph tag. So, and I did the same for all the other typography elements. So now let's come down here and define the actual typography component. Typography is equals to, and this typography component will take children. This is where I like to destructure the props, okay. Variant props, and this comes from mod typography props. We define the TypeScript, not that one, typography, mod typography props. And also don't forget to pass in a ref, okay. We do this to every single component we write, passing the ref, forwarding the ref, okay. Ref HTML element. That looks, something happened there. That should not do that. React dot ref HTML element. Seems like there is a syntax error somewhere here. So typography children variant props mod typography props. Do we have this here? There is a for ref is okay, mod typography props, right? Let's come down here and see what's going on. So typography children variant props, we have more typography props, and then we're passing in ref react.ref HTML element. Let's keep writing and see what this does. Okay, that errors are gone. Const typography component is equals to, we'll call that get typography component function that we wrote above, and then variant, and then we'll do as react.component type, because this get typography component returns a React component. Okay, so that's why we need to do we'll need to specify the type of that component that is being returned by get typography component. So react.component type, and the types will be mod typography props. Okay, mod typography props, and then we can return the typography component. Okay, typography component that we defined over here, we are returning it here. This typography component will spread the props, so that so the spreading props is because typography component, it will render either h1, h6, any typography like HTML element, the text element. Okay, and when we do this props, those elements will have some of the default HTML, some of the valid HTML attributes like class name, data test, or class name, data, style. Okay, if we do not spread this props out, then those h1 element will not those style or the class name HTML attribute, it won't take it. Okay, so that's why we need to spread the props each and every time we render a component, and that is if we want in this case the h1 tag to be able to use the class name and style attribute from HTML. So ref is, let's pass that ref. Okay, let's not forget that, because we will do this in every single component. Let's also specify that should be wrapped in a curly braces there and no comma after that. Let's also specify data test, just like we did with the layout component in the last video. This can be, data test can be typography. Okay, let's close that typography component and then render the children. Okay, there shouldn't be that curly braces there, and let's export this typography, export default typography component. Okay, and there is an error somewhere here, so I think this happened last time. No, it didn't. HTML element, did you mean HTML element? Yes, of course I meant uppercase HTML element. Okay, HTML element, so that looks good. Let's fix this ESLint yellow warning too, or maybe the TypeScript yellow warning. Okay, so we still haven't used this forward ref and with system props. Do not forget this. Okay, because we'll be writing test again, just like in the layout component. We'll first wrap this with system props, and then we'll wrap this with forward ref. Okay, just like we talked about in the last video, in the last videos I should say, because I think the forward ref I talked not in the last video but the video before that, I think, I don't remember, but that's the typography component. Okay, it will render, and this typography component is simple to write tests for this. It's not as complicated. Okay, because everything is hard coded here. Again, this is, we are starting, whenever we're writing test, we are starting with the basic test, and then as we go on we'll write more and more complex test. Okay, so the typography component looks good. Now let's finally write test for this typography component, and to do that, let me remove these theme files here. Let's open that layout spec.tsx file, because these are globally shared. Okay, the system props, we can just copy and paste this, the render props and system props and global styles. Okay, because this with system props is wrapping every single component that we have. That's why we can just copy and paste each of this here, and we'll just make slight modifications. Okay, So copy that, and then in typography spec, let's just remove all that. In typography spec, let's paste that. Let's remove this layout spec. Okay, so now let's test this typography component, and instead of layout, I'm just going to search for each and every each of the layout that exists in this file, and I'm going to rename this to typography. Okay, typography, let's rename that. And we still need layout. Okay, you know what, I can't do that because we still need the layout in order for the thing to work. So let's close that. But let's remove that typography too, and let's actually import the layout component. Okay, so that is from layout. Let's also, because we're writing test for typography component, let's import that typography component. There was only one folder back. Let's rename this to typography. Okay, and I'm thinking that these test case name, it doesn't really matter, but I was thinking to, because in some when we are copy pasting this props and with system props, it applies to all the components, so we can just copy and paste. But when we copy and paste, that also it still needs to be modifications. Like if we are copying this spec file from layout.spec.tsx, then we'll need to rename the layout to typography. But in other component testing that we'll write, we can just copy and paste. But for now, let's just leave this to lowercase, and then we'll see this in the future. Okay, so typography, that test case looks good. Let's just do the renaming things here first. That looks good. There's no typography. You know what, this should not be layout, this should be typography. Okay, is that the test name here? Let's come and look at the test name here. What it was typography. Okay, so let's rename that to test case to typography. Let's do all of this first, and then we will come to, let's copy and paste the test case or the test name or the test ID. Okay, not test name but test ID. Okay, typography. So should render default typography component, that is our first test case. There doesn't do much, it just should exist in the DOM. That should pass. Okay, because we still have this typography component and we are testing typography should exist. I explained this test in last video about when we tested the layout component, so go and watch that. Okay, I explained this test cases test suite in greater detail in that video. Okay, but here I'm just going to because this is so much similar to the layout component testing, so that's why I'm not go into deep over here. For props, should include only valid props in HTML, looks good, but because these props, these attributes are in the layout component, and over here we are testing typography component, so let's remove that from layout component. Let's add that to the typography component. Okay, it renders hello world, and typography components will have all these attributes. Okay, let's do the same thing for this one too, for global styles, or these not global styles but system props. Okay, let's remove that from layout and let's paste this to typography. Okay, and typography should exist and should have attribute all that. Inline styles, is that, no, that's styled from style components, so let's rename, let's modify this to style typography. Okay, styled, not layout this time, it's typography. Okay, it's applying margin 32, padding 32. Let's copy this style typography. Instead of style layout should only be layout. Style, remove that. Typography should be style typography. Okay, let's save that, and that looks good. Inline styles with highest precedence, so let's remove the inline styles from the layout because we are not testing layout, we are testing typography, and let's paste that to the typography component. Okay, style 32, margin 32, padding 32, looks good. Okay, should add custom class names and override as well as add styles from a separate CSS file. So instead of the class name in layout, we are going to provide the class name in typography. Okay, looks good. Let's go ahead and run this test suite and then see what we get. Okay, I went super fast here because this is such a simple, it's not even a well, it is a test, but this is so simple that I did not want to explain this again in this video, but I did explain that in the layout in the last video, where we wrote the layout or completed the layout component and also wrote the test for it. Okay, so go and watch the last part of this course, last video right before this. Okay, so npm run test core, and then that'll open up Cypress. Okay, it might not run because I think we have not built the core library yet, but let's see. I think Cypress automatically or hot reloads it. So there's an error, cannot read properties of undefined reading if something happened here. Is that because we are not building it? Let's try to run the build and see what happens. npm run. I don't think we need to run the build in order for Cypress to see it. I think Cypress should automatically do the hot reloading on its own. Okay, but let's run the build. Did I run core? Yes, I did. And Cypress is complaining that cannot read property of undefined reading ff, that is from the theme. So it cannot read the ff, that is the font family. Okay, so the problem is here. props.theme.typography, I did a spelling error there. Typography, and if I did the spelling error here, then of course I did this in all of it. Okay, so I'm going to go and correct the spelling error and I'll be back. Okay, so all those errors are fixed. Let's go back to Cypress and then reload. So for typography, all the test cases has been passed. Okay, let's refresh that. All the test cases passed. It ran as well. The props is not in the DOM. Okay, and also the system props and the global styles are working fine. So that's the typography component. Let's see if there's any errors in the console. Okay, we always want to see if it's throwing any errors in the console. It's not, because it's this typography component is so simple, yet it does a lot of things. But in some complex components that will be writing in the future, there will be tons and tons of errors. So that's why I would like to keep this console window open. Okay, because we do not want a component full of bugs to go to production, so we always need to watch out for this console window. Okay, but the typography component, everything, all the test cases works well. And again, this was just like the layout component testing, because all the styles here, all we are doing is applying styles to typography elements, and these styles are hard-coded. Okay, they are still dynamic, given that they are imported. They are taken from a theme, but then we only have two theme, light theme and dark theme, and these are basically hard-coded depending on the theme that the user is, or depending on the theme that we are at. Okay, but I think this typography component looks good. Again, throughout this course, this is the typography component that we'll be using. So that was it. Let me close this so that next time we come, we are in the we see the same thing on the screen here. Okay, see ya.